like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
The blackest dies.
Puny God.
Come on!
Make this asshole.
You're terminated, fucker.
Live or die, man.
Roads? When we're going, we don't need roads.
There can be only one.
Kill you all.
Goonies never say die.
You call me Joker. As you can see, I'm not happy.
Are you not entertained?
This is friend.
Happy trails, Hans.
Welcome back to the Skewered Universe Podcast. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Leiann.
Leiann's back, everybody.
Woohoo!
She came back from her hiatus of kicking ass and taking names.
Okay.
And she came back because it's First Watch February. You know, this is time where we watch movies neither of us have seen, or at least one of us hasn't seen. And we decided to go with Fade to Black.
This is Eric. Eric Benford.
Double-crossing squealers, both of you.
I go to a lot of movies. It's my thing.
You know what I do to squealers?
Why don't you live in the real world with the rest of us?
If you're so smart, Stella, tell me what James Cagney's name was in White Heat.
Benford he's sick in the head. He's like retarded or something.
Here's to us, top of the world.
I'm a great admirer. I just wanted to meet you.
Happy birthday to you.
I once went to 3 movies every day for a year, and I never missed once.
I can't picture the creature who'd want to marry you. Tell me, who is this unlucky girl?
Marilyn Monroe.
Remember, you picked me up hitchhiking. I gave you the whole idea for my movie.
I've never heard of you.
Happy birthday,
Huh? Cut it, Bill!
dear Eric.
What are you looking at, you creep? But you didn't know what Adolf Hitler's favorite movie was. Broadway Melody, I bet you didn't know that. And what about Cry of Battle and War is Hell? Where were they playing, huh?
Eric Benford lives for the movies. Sometimes he kills for them too. Dennis Christopher, star of Breaking Away, creates an unforgettable portrait of life on the edge of terror. Fade to Black. Introducing Eric Benford.
Happy birthday, sucker.
Star of the silver screen. Master of disguise.
Well, I think he's calling you out. Hopalong Cassidy. Oh, look at this.
Minister of horror. Now in the ultimate performance of murder.
This is it. It's Hollywood. Can't touch me. Not now.
Fade to Black.
But Leiann, there's a little something extra we have for this episode. Do you know what that is?
No.
We have a guest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have a guest. Sorry.
You played that perfectly. I appreciate that. You guys know him from Strange Highways and Invasion of the Podcast. He's our good friend, Paul Steadman. How you doing, Paul?
Good. I was not aware that this was going to be a first-time watch for the three of us. That's interesting. I thought this was like one of your just treasured picks that you were bringing to me for the first time because I'd never seen it before. So this will be a interesting three fresh sets of eyes on this film.
Yeah, I try to do little things throughout the month, even if it's not having guests on. So February, it just kind of works. First watch February, some alliteration there. But I'm glad it was a first for all three of us because we can get like a fresh perspective. Nobody is like going into this like holding it dear, like they saw it as a kid and they're like, this is one of my favorite movies. I like that we all have a fresh perspective on this.
I'm not gonna lie. I tune out half of what our future episodes are. So in my mind, it was something that Paul had picked because he liked it. And when I started watching it, I was like, I can see why he would pick this.
Well, then I don't know how we're going to feel about this conversation we're about to have, but okay. No, like, so to turn the page a little bit on and go behind the scenes, like you'd approach me about being on the show, of course, which of course I would want to do and enjoy talking to both of you. And because you had also done me a solid last year by coming on Invasion, and I had you pick something you're comfortable with, and you brought the film Bad Boys to me. We watched and talked about it. It was a wonderful talk. And I kind of, you're like, well, pick something. And I'm like, no, I want to pick your brain about what we should watch. And then that's why I thought this was something that, like, I think it's funny that it's almost like this film just kind of exists now. It's like, well, I didn't pick it. Well, who picked it? Not me, like, so, because I'm always, sometimes it's not just like everybody has their loves that they bring forward. Like, I would love to show you this, love to talk about it. Right. And that's always great too. But sometimes it's almost like, here's something I love that you've never seen. Like I want to bring it to you as opposed to having like somebody like a guest bring something, I wanted to reverse it. I wanted to get in your head a little bit, but it turns out since this is like a first time watch, like I didn't know the origin.
But well, trust me though, watching this movie, you get into his head very easily.
Yeah. I could just say that whatever's being said after this, this was not a movie that I had seen before. And it's an interesting film. It has bones. We'll get there when we get there. So we'll say that.
Yeah. To peel back the curtain a little bit and go a little behind the scenes, I had become aware of this movie like a year or two ago. I was watching, I think it was one of the In Search of Darkness documentaries. It might have been one or two. And it came up in that. And I thought the premise was really interesting. So I added it to a list of stuff I eventually wanted to get to on the podcast. So in January, come the first of the year, when I started laying out the groundwork for this entire year, tentatively, it was one that I was like, yeah, we got to watch this. I'll put it down for February. So when you said, pick something weird, pick something, I was like, this is probably weird from what I remember. And it's definitely odd.
It is weird. I will give you that. Absolutely. Yes. So
there were so many surprises. I was pleasantly surprised multiple times.
Well, I'll say this too, is that it is a rare thing for me to not know pretty much anything about a movie. Not that I'm like this well-watched guy. It's just, but the internet exists, and you kind of and you mentioned In Search of Darkness, and like just through the regular conversation of genre, you end up hearing about things, or you hear something about things, right? This is a film that you mentioned to me. I had never heard of it before, and I made it a point to not watch the trailer, to not read anything about it. This is one of the few times in like being a grown-up and seeking out media that I had no idea what I was about to watch. So that in itself is kind of that's kind of refreshing, because the way this movie starts and the way it ends, it's this really isn't like it, it has its own course, but if I would have paused the movie halfway through, I still wouldn't have that's what's going to happen next. No idea.
That's actually how I went into it too. When it started, Jeff asked me, do you want to know the synopsis? And I said, no, I want to be 100% surprised.
Yeah, because I like my wife, who I love dearly. She, if things aren't on her radar, then they just aren't on her radar. So I have to bring a lot of things to her and be like, "Can we watch this?" She's like, "I don't know what this is." I'm like, "I know you don't know what this is. Can we watch it?" And so then she's kind of like this. Like, there's times I'm envious where it's like I know there's something that I'm passionate about that I like a great deal. And then if she didn't know anything about it and she's like, well, that was a great film. It's like, why can't I have that moment? Which we have that, but that pure, someone's going to take you by the hand and be like, I want to show you this wonderful thing. And you just trust the system, right? Like, and I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that don't give me recommendations, and like, of course you guys too. It's just, it's rare to have like that, like just like I said, when you mentioned this film to me, and I was like, I literally had no idea this thing existed. Though I'm sure some of the imagery I've probably seen before and did not know what movie to associate it with. And I'm sure with some of the local horror conventions here in Ohio, this feels like one of those movies that would be on the Blu-ray table by everything else. So I'm sure I've probably seen the cover art and didn't think twice about it. Because, it has a particular 80s look to it that, like you could put this right by like something like Popcorn or something else. And you'd be like, yeah, there's all that looks the same.
It almost seems like something we would have seen maybe in the background of a horror film, like a movie poster, and maybe we just didn't know what it was, but it's definitely got a very iconic look to it. Yeah,
or there's something that would have been like on like USA Up All Night, or when they used to do just the horror films, like late night television. Like,
yeah,
that's what this like. So for whatever reason, I am honestly surprised, considering the circles I travel in, that I had never heard of this movie. And then when I was talking about it a little bit last night in a group chat, thankfully the other people involved had all seen it, so it wasn't like I was like ruining any of the weirdness.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just funny because I went on Letterboxd. I'm like, oh, all these people have seen this already. Well, I guess I'm late to the party from 1980, whatever. No, but thank you. Like that's like I wanted to genuinely say that like it is unique. I mean, outside of a movie that had just come out in the theater, right? But like, which you still get people writing and talking about. This is something it's this odd thing that I just zero knowledge. I was even trying to avoiding reading anything when I was trying to find it to stream, because I didn't want to learn anything else about it. So I wanted to give the movie every chance to win me over, without having any preconceived notion of what it was.
Right. And like I said, I only knew the little bit that they talked about it in one of the In Search of Darkness documentaries, like I said, and I read a synopsis briefly and was like, okay, sounds interesting enough. And then I didn't do anything else. I didn't watch any trailers, didn't do anything, because I knew I wanted to talk about it on the podcast, and I wanted to see it with fresh eyes, not have, like you said, any judgment going into it or expectations or anything like that. Just go in raw and fresh and see what it could give me.
Giggity.
Yeah, no, and I think this, I mean, for however we all end up on this thing, is like, I at least want to say that like I appreciate like the opportunity to know jack shit about a movie before getting into it, which is, I always overkill myself by reading like about everything online, so I did my best, and here we are.
Same. I did some research on it. I've got notes here, just some random facts and stuff, not too in depth about like, oh, well, this actor. I mean, I know what some of the actors did. I mean, speaking of that, real quick, so we have Dennis Christopher as our main character, Eric Binford, right? And I'm just going to run off the names that
I think it's a beautiful performance.
It was good.
It is a performance. We'll get there.
I'm going to run off just the names of people that I recognize, because some of the other people I have never heard of before. So if either of you have, you can throw in some stuff. Of course, Dennis Christopher, our main character, who most of us probably know as Eddie Kaspbrak, the adult version in the 1990 It miniseries. Tim Thomerson, who many people know from Trancers, probably from the Doll Man series from Full Moon. I remember him as the dad in Iron Eagle. That's what I know him from.
Yeah, it's very recognizable, like face, like you, and also I'm glad that the way he was parting his hair, that's how I parted my hair most through like elementary school and middle school. So I respect that.
And the only other two names here that I really recognize were, of course, Mickey Rourke in his second film, apparently, and Peter Horton, who was in the original Children of the Corn, if I remember that correctly.
So I want to mention here real quick. I didn't realize this. It's in the trivia. I think it's funny though that was Gwen Guilford, who is the lady cop that doesn't get much to do. Evidently, she was very much pregnant at the time making this film, and they kept hiding like her. And little do we know that this was Chris Pine's first movie. So, much like Rihanna in Super Bowl like performance, like Chris Pine has a good movie that So I thought that was funny. I'm like, oh, this really? I was like, that's Dale. I'm glad that he was able to do something other than this. He went on.
Yeah. One of the few times where IMDb trivia is actually a piece of trivia.
Yeah, right.
And knowledge, not just this film made so much money at the box office. Yeah, we could figure that out anywhere. It's not trivia. That's just a fact.
No, the ones that piss me off about like IMDb, whatever letters, numbers, and that is where it's like, this was talked about on so-and-so's podcast. I'm like, thank you, person of so-and-so's podcast, to add that as trivia, because no one else would have added that other than the person of so-and-so's podcast. So now, after we talk about this, you can go add this as a trivia to this movie on IMDb. People are like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Chris Pine was in Utero and also a Skewered Universe? Oh, I didn't know that. Other things I just want to mention.
It's kind of clever if you think about it. It's dumb, clever, but it's clever.
It's brazen. It's nakedly brazen, right? So,
right.
So I do want to mention here that what was it? Norman Burton as Marty Berger. He was the guy that ran the whatever that thing is, the film place.
Right.
He was in an original episode of The Twilight Zone from season 4. Called Miniature, which he had an uncredited role in that, but that was the one with it was actually one of the few hour-long episodes that I ended up liking a great deal. It has Robert Duvall in that. That's a really good episode.
Wow.
It was one of the lost episodes. It got aired once, and then there was a weird somebody claimed that it was that the story had been like taken and that plagiarized, so it actually got taken out of rotation until the 80s. So anyway, that's a good episode. And then also Linda Carriage as Marilyn O'Connor. She was an alien from LA. And the reason I bring that up is because that was the first Mystery Science Theater film I'd ever seen, was Alien from LA. And that's one of my favorites. It's a good time. I don't know if you've seen Alien from LA with Mystery Science Theater.
I have not. I have not.
Kathy Ireland's in it. It's a Canon produced film, so you know it's going to be batshit crazy.
Oh my God. You had me at Canon.
Yeah. And then the last one I would mention here, just because this is the joke I'm going to make, and I'll get out of the way because I'm a hack and a fraud, is James Luisi as Captain M.L. Gallagher. And I wrote, from when you want John Saxon, but you can't afford him. Because he looks like Kirkland brand John Saxon, where it's like, well, I want John Saxon. We have him at home. It's like, no. Like, he was shouty Captain Man. But it's like John Saxon, really? Like, you couldn't have like paid like $15 more and got him in this movie, but whatever. Anyway,
John Saxon was doing Italian giallo films. He would have done this.
Oh yeah, no, like for sure. Like every time, like I've been digging into a lot of other Italian stuff, not giallo, but yeah, a lot of weird, action and sci-fi movies. Every so often, like, oh yeah, John Saxon, there you are. Good on you, sir. But maybe at the time he was overseas and didn't want to risk incurring like tax issues coming back to America. I don't know.
You never know. You never know.
So yeah,
he was. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's your show. I apologize. I'm a wrecking ball. So go ahead, please.
Hey, I appreciate it. I was just gonna say he was definitely John Saxon light. Like, you ordered John Saxon off Wish, and that's what you get.
It's Wish version John Saxon. It's like, oh, it's not quite the picture, is it? Nope, not really. So I don't know if you're going to get into the writer director. I have some other notes about the producer and some other things that I thought was interesting. Real quick. I don't know if you have any notes about that or not.
Yeah, well, I know sourcing here. I know it was written and directed by Vernon Zimmerman, and apparently this was his last feature film for like 15 years or something like that.
His last like directing thing, I think he did a short later, but one of the things is like he co-wrote 1989's film Teen Witch, which I've never seen, but like that's as well as ones that there's a nostalgia for it that people
love
about.
It. It's one of my favorites.
There you go.
It is corny as hell.
Yeah. So I've not seen that. So maybe next February. I'm kidding. No. But one of the producers on this film was Erwin Yablans, who was actually his company, Compass International Pictures, which was founded in 1977. That was the company that actually produced Halloween. And there was, after that, there was some problems with some money and Carpenter and company there. But he would also go on to produce Tourist Trap, which if you see in the movie here in Berger's office, you see both of those posters displayed prominently, especially there's the one sequence with the Halloween poster right there. And then the company closed down in 81, surprising nobody, before reemerging 4 years later under the name Trancaz International Films. They have had a stake in every Halloween film going forward. And I know that they bought out some of the rights from Carpenter, and he was able to keep some. So it's like it's him and his producing partner at the time and wife, and I'm blanking on it because I'm a bad person. Every time there's something, every time there's a Halloween thing that comes out, he gets a check because of it, and he's okay with it. So like, I mean, then it was a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is this film was distributed by American Cinema Releasing, and they existed from 75 to 81. You're gonna see a pattern here. Its distribution wing is best known for Chuck Norris's film Good Guys Wear Black, which led to them produce a number of action movies, including The Octagon. So like they had a brief bit, and one of the last films they released was Fade to Black. So there was a lot of wobbly behind the scenes money things and distribution things going on, which feels very canon adjacent. And then the last thing I want to mention here is that the music, the score of this is done by Craig Safin, who I keep running into with the 80s Twilight Zone, Good, Bad, and Other One. But he did the score for The Last Starfighter, which is awesome. So
I love The Last Starfighter.
Yeah. So like I just credit where credit's due, but some of his stuff he does for TV, I just want to pull my head off and kick it sometimes while watching the 80s version of the Twilight Zone. But yeah.
I identify with that completely.
I can understand that. Yeah, just on a side note here, The Last Starfighter, and some people will probably hate me for this, that was my Star Wars growing up.
No, it's a great movie. Then also when you have Michael Myers directing it, it's a great movie. I mean, it could have used another 15 minutes to develop some of the stuff, but what we got is great. I love it. But this movie exists, Fade to Black exists in this weird, like late 70s, early 80s murky where there's a lot of money, like a lot of questionable money floating around, a lot of companies trying to just like, if they can get that one big hit that, like in Canon, that's the company that was always trying to be like, well, we're going to make like 15 movies and we're going to sell the rights before, like the distribution rights before we even make them. And then one of them is going to make enough money so we can keep making more movies. And it's like, that's not a sound business strategy. They're like, we're going to pay $9 million for over the top. Like, that's not a good business strategy either. It's like, trust me, we'll get there. And then, they didn't. Yeah. But a lot of these companies were kind of canon, like they feel like canon adjacent as well. So I thought when I was watching this, it's like, this feels like a canon film. And it has some of those edges to it. And I'm sorry, I'm over talking, but I was like, was this not produced by Canon? Because it feels like it would have been.
No, you're fine over talking. I appreciate that because I didn't get any of that information. Normally, I would try to get some of it, but I was just so like, I've been doing so much work behind the scenes on the podcast that I might forget to get some things, and I just didn't grab that much. So I appreciate that, and I'm gonna give you a little.
Were you like in the podcast garage, like on the board on the floor, and you had like you were like welding? And then Leiann pulls the board out and be like, hey, we got to get going. You're like, I got to fix these podcast pipes. And otherwise it's going to fall apart or whatever. It's just like, sparks flying, OSHA violations all over the place, but you're going to make it work.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a plug here, Paul, for Invasion of the Podcast. If any of you out there are wondering about Canon films, go into the archives of Invasion. They did an entire year on Canon films, and it was fascinating.
One a month, like because we didn't do a full. Oh, I don't think I would have made it out the other end if we would just did Canon films like for an entire year.
Yeah, I mean there was enough there that like you guys sunk your teeth into Canon, and I don't know how you came out with as much of your sanity on the other side.
Just having my co-host Steve and us having a good time, and then also promising him that there was like one like legitimately good film that was like a hair away from getting awards recognition, but the powers that be could not possibly, like they didn't want to give Golan Globus any type of that actual acclaim. So they kept them away from the one thing that would have made them a legitimate like studio in the eyes of like Hollywood. They didn't give them any of those awards, right? But I kept telling Steve, I was like, just trust me, there's one coming, and I knew it. But then we got we got through a lot of a lot of bad, you know. And then we came back, what was it, a couple months later, and then we covered Superman 4, you know.
yeah, it's Superman 4, The Quest for More Money.
Yeah. Something. Yeah. The Quest for More Money on a really low budget. But yeah, that stuff's fun. And like I said, watching this, I got strong canon vibes throughout.
Same here. I've seen my share of canon films over the years. I mean, the majority of Chuck Norris's stuff was canon, and I grew up teething on that stuff, basically.
Yeah, and it just like was over the weekend. I ended up watching like American Ninja again. That movie's a lot of fun, but it's like just with what I mean by this being like canon adjacent, where it's like you can tell that there's a good idea in this movie. And I guess maybe you should say spoilers, because if this is the first time the three of us have watched it, if anybody's coming in this conversation has not seen it, I'd say, you know, it's worth the watch if you don't know anything about it. I paid $1 on Amazon to watch it. I thought it was going to be $4. It's like, oh, reduced price $1. I'm like, well, that seems about right. That's fine. You know, it's also on Shudder. I didn't watch it on Shudder just because I don't have an app for it on my downstairs stuff. So I wanted to have headphones on to watch it. So it's easily available. So I'm just saying, if people haven't seen it, you know, like it's worth a watch. And there are turns this thing takes that I don't want to ruin for anybody, because they're just like, what the hell is going on with this movie right now? You know, like, so yeah, but in terms of it being like canon adjacent, meaning there's ideas and then it kind of meanders a little bit. And then there's also times where it's like, oh shit, we got to have the cops do something for a minute because we forgot about them for like an hour in this movie.
I thought the exact same thing. I thought, what do the cops have to do with it? Where are they going to come back in?
Yeah, it was almost like there was a separate movie where, and also we got to mention that Tim Thomerson plays Dr. Jerry Moriarty. It's like, I see what you're doing. I see, you know, Moriarty, you know, you're like the foil. Yeah. Like, oh, I get it. You know, and it's like, he's somehow supposed to be like this guy. It's not a cop, but like a therapist, but he's like the worst therapist and also like the worst person to have around other cops.
Was he actually a therapist? Because I couldn't figure out what he was supposed to do.
What about the harmonica? He played a harmonica pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, if he's smokes a lot of coke.
Yeah, as the cop is like, as his soon to be hottie. Maybe, you know, is that the origin story for Chris Pine? I don't know. We don't know what's going on there. Is Tim Thomerson Chris Pine's father? Maybe.
Oh my God.
I don't think so, but it'd be funny, right? Like, it's like he started playing the harmonica and doing real cocaine, and we just started filming him. That wasn't part of the movie. Yeah, it's just, I don't understand. Like, you never once saw him actually doing like any like
nothing. He did nothing, literally nothing.
and we will get there, but I want to give it just a brief synopsis. So Eric Binford is this somewhat delusional, lost in a world of film. He works for this like film supply company, delivering stuff throughout Los Angeles and Southern California. And he is obsessed to the point of madness, I would say, with film, to the point that he's the most annoying person with all of the trivia about pretty much every film ever made, just about. And things go off the rails from there. So
he's like a comment section if it was a real person in 2023. He's a talkback section. He is for a lot of like, he's an incel before that was even a thing, right? How like, I mean, I'm being serious in the sense of like, he has his own viewpoints of how relationships work and how like, you know, he has to be, what do they call them? The Chad is what they call. I think there's the parlance, right? Like they call like. They all make fun of like the good looking.
Oh yeah,
Chads, right.
Yeah,
and it's like he has to be like that, and it's like you could easily see like this movie. It exists perfectly in 1980, where since he has so many films around him, and just because it's actually it's a good setup where it's like you living in California, you work for like a company that has a bunch of film. Your aunt slash mother slash I don't know what's going on there. Because that gets weird.
He's her masseuse apparently.
Well, I think it's implied that there's more going on there. I just don't like that. You know.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Oof, and that's, you know, that's also feels very canon adjacent, where everybody's like creepy, horny for everybody for no reason. But yeah, that was weird. But and also you get like the kind of the Norman Bates bit, like except his mother's still alive here. You kind of get that.
Yeah, The part that weirded me out, like I understood the volatile relationship they had and they would antagonize each other. But when he didn't want to finish breakfast and got up to leave, she genuinely wanted him to stay. And I'm like, does she actually care about him? What is going on?
I don't know. It changed from scene to scene. Like even the bit later on, whenever he's actually going to go on a date, she seems like legitimately like, oh, look at you cleaning yourself up. I was like, is this one of those things where the only people they have in their lives are each other, so they're just going to be like, they can both be terrible to each other because like neither one's going to leave each other.
Yeah.
But it keeps changing from scene to scene. But his fascination with like cinema, you could do that in 2023. It's a much easier rabbit hole for someone like him to fall into because of the internet, right? So you could have these people that get obsessive like this with trivia and everything else. And you can see that, especially since we got through, we're coming through the pandemic's still going on, but people like forcibly shut in and all they have is media and and YouTube and everything else. It's a harder stretch going then where it's like all this guy has is movies. Watching it now, I think we can not sympathize, but be like, yeah, that's what I would do. Where I'm sure that at the time people were like, what's the other thing you hear now? Go out and touch grass. That's like, yeah, kid, go out and touch grass, but his love is cinema. And I don't think he has a personality outside of it. That's the vibe I get. But then
no, his personality definitely breaks throughout the entire movie.
Yeah. So I think that his personality type is something that it existed then. I mean, it's always existed, but I think where we're at now with how everything's kind of, everybody's aware with social media and everything else. This is something that's you almost feel like you wouldn't be surprised where it's like, oh, that kid that like watching all those old movies. Well, I mean, literally at one point he does bring a gun into a barbershop, right? But well, he brings guns into multiple places. Sure, why not? All flavors of public shootings. But it's like, you wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, that Binford kid. Yeah, I figured something was going to happen to him. Like he kept to himself until Mickey Rourke kept beating him up and not paying him money. I don't know why he'd kill people. It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, everything he did, there was no real definition of who Eric Binford was. Because right away, anytime he talked to his auntie mom, he was doing it in voices as characters from movies. When he saw Marilyn in the little diner, he immediately was like, not really himself. He's just spouting off knowledge and like, oh, you're Marilyn Monroe. I've seen all your movies. Like that was the only part that we really saw that might have been him. Everything else was recited as characters from other movies. And it's like, you don't know who you are at all. There's no definition of an Eric Binford in you whatsoever. You're living life as you're a character.
At least Ralphie in A Christmas Story, you got to see him have multiple fantasies, right? And this is like, Eric got one. And I think it'd have been better if maybe they would have leaned into more, like, even though you start seeing him acting out in different ways, would it have been better to actually do you as the audience see him seeing the world as these movies where maybe you go sepia tone for the Western bit, or you go that really cruddy black and white. Maybe you do more of the darker, gangster film look. Maybe you do you could tell that the filmmaker had it within his his purview of the films he was wanting to reference. But it's maybe if we would have gotten more in his head, and it's the whole thing of what if Marilyn wasn't such a I don't know, vapid? I don't know. The only thing we know about her is that she likes getting wine drunk in her own place. And I was going to ask you this, Leiann, because I was talking to my wife about this last night. I was like, when you get in the shower, do you just leave all your makeup on? Is that a thing women do?
And I thought about that, but I was thinking, makeup and skincare today is way different than it was back then. So I think, yeah, but at the same time, I would have, at least rinsed my face. She just leaves her face dry.
She would have rinsed her face with wine, because that's what would have happened. I'm just wine drunk again. I guess I'll get in the shower now. Which, I mean, I respect that. I'm sure, getting a buzz on and taking a shower. I'm not denying that at all, but you know,
I think we're seeing a little into your personal life.
I don't know. That's fine. Sure. The comedian Kyle Kinane has a whole bit about like drinking shower beers and playing like an iPod on shuffle, and about how the music will affect his mood while he's just drinking shower beers. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've heard that bit. I have heard that bit several times, and I think you and I, Paul, may have just become best friends because you recited that skit here. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't recite it. I'm not.
Well,
I'm not
you mentioned it. You talked about it.
I'm not the masterful wordsmith that is Kyle Kinane, and if people don't know who he is, look him up. He's wonderful. The guy has an interesting viewpoint on the world, and I really appreciate it. But yeah, just this film, it wears a lot. You can tell that it's kind of a love letter to film in a way, but it's also like there's stuff here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just with him eventually breaking, because what breaks him? Well, the girl he keeps calling Marilyn because that's her actual name, right? Fair enough. But how she inadvertently, accidentally stands him up, and then he's like, you know what? No, I guess I'm going to go talk to a hooker and see what I can get for $10. And then she walks away from me, and then he's like, I'm going to go home, and my aunt mom is frustrated that she didn't get her massage and whatever else was going on there. I don't know. And then he's like, you know what? I was watching a movie about a woman in a wheelchair that got thrown downstairs. That's a good call.
I love that.
You know, like, I mean, no, that's fine. Like, I like that. This is also a movie very much before the internet. Of course it is, but showing scenes, like distinct scenes of the films that he's watching, that feels like a modern cut to me, like a modern edit to at least like remind you, like this is the silver age of cinema that he's watching, and you're seeing these other performances, and this is what he's imprinting on. That was nice, because even when he's in the diner, like the stupid thing talking about the creature from the Black Lagoon and his impersonation is like, dude, don't to stop. But back to that cross-cutting was actually pretty effective, right? Like I thought that was cool. And then, you know, even with him like watching the Westerns with I forget the name of the cowboy. I was gonna say Howdy Doody, that's not right. But
Hopalong Cassidy.
Yeah, there you go. Sure. You know, I mean, I know it is Hopalong Cassidy, you're right. But it's like, I like that it at least brings, like, maybe if you've not seen these movies in forever, which maybe you hadn't, because other than watching TV or going to the movie house, the odds are maybe you hadn't seen that movie in like 20 years, 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a nice refresher, so you at least get in his mind. So I like that. It's just some of the motivations are a little weird, right? Like, so I apologize. I am talking way too much, but you guys know what you got when you like, whenever I was like, hey, I should come on the show, you know, whatever. So,
Paul, I wouldn't have you on if you weren't going to talk, man. If you're going to be a mute, you know. I'm
going to be stoic, and I'm just going to wait for the conversation to come to me. I'm going to, you know, that's, you know, the one thing I do like about this movie I respect is that they're in this movie theater watching Night of the Living Dead, which I would be like, of all the movies that you can show clips from, I'm like, I know you paid $0 for that. Good on you.
Oh yeah.
Because we know they didn't have to pay anybody for that. But there's a bit where someone was commenting, and then Ben Furt's like, shh, and then they did. I'm like, to be in that world where you could actually do that, because we now live in the hellscape of modern movie going, and I'm cranky old man that shakes my hand at the clouds and get angry watching movies where people won't shut up. You know, but you know, when goddamn Dracula tells you to shut up, you shut up. You know, so I respect that.
I have my issues with people in theaters, like people talking. I'm like, you came to a theater to watch a movie, right? Not to have a conversation and ruin everybody else's experience. 1, 2, shut your damn phone off, put it in your pocket, and watch the movie, or leave. Just leave.
Are we talking about the same scene that I'm thinking of where everyone's in a costume?
Yeah, kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but okay, so I've always wanted to go to these like Twilight showings where like everybody, like it's like a marathon in theaters, and the fans go and basically recite all the lines, and it seems like so much fun, and I sound like such a nerd. So I think it was one of those types of like movie events where people were going dressed up for a specific reason to have fun and be silly and watch their favorite movies.
That's fair. Like one of the worst viewing experiences I've ever had in my life. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
Oh yes.
We went the Cleveland area. There's actually really good. Cleveland Cinemas is actually a pretty good setup that we have for the city, where there's like 4 or 5 theaters associated in there. They do art house films. They do like modern stuff too. And but in the before 4 times of the pandemic, they would do like midnight showings a lot of the times. And then once a month for a long time, they would do an interactive viewing of The Room, where you go in and watch it and people can, be rowdy, which is fine. But it was like, there's rowdy and then there's obnoxious, right? Like, and there was a guy sitting, like, what was it, in front of us, and it's him and his girlfriend, which, I mean, I felt so bad for her. He was like he knew where the points where people were supposed to react to were, and he would just kind of like, he was like turning around, like acting like you're doing it wrong. I'm like, calm down, dude. And he's like, yeah, like the whole thing was like if your whole thing is that you want to be the shining star at a midnight showing of The Room, do you need a hug? Like, where are you at, buddy? Like, I felt like, and it was just so obnoxious, like him trying to like move, like get the crowd to react right. And then also there's a whole thing too, that I forget the phrase, that when they say something, people are supposed to throw plastic spoons at the screen. I got hit with so many goddamn spoons. I was there with my my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and we're just like, it was like, but we were kind of locked in the crowd, so we couldn't get up and leave, and it was just like, this is hell on earth. I can't deal with this right now.
I'm not gonna lie, that makes me so happy. That sounds like fun.
That my being tortured for an hour and a half. Yeah, I mean,
I can imagine me being in the crowd and just seeing these 2 people being so irritated that they have spoons thrown on them.
Well, no, we kept quiet, whatever. No, it's like, but if you ever get a chance to do like a movie marathon, like there's one here also in Cleveland that we do called the 12 Hours of Terror, where it's like 12 hours of horror movies, and you're allowed like a little bit of participation's fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm sorry, this is a brief.
Yeah.
But there's a bit where it's like if you're watching Jason X, of course you're going to be a little bit rowdy, right? But like if you're watching The Mist, shut up and watch the movie.
Right, like, I get it.
I think there's a difference there, right? Like,
yeah.
So read The Room. So maybe Dracula shushing people watching Night of the Living Dead, fair enough. But I also, the part of the movie that like I find the most unbelievable is that the person actually stayed quiet after getting shushed. That's not a 21st century convention. That we don't have that anymore.
No, that would just fuel the fire.
And continue. I'm sorry.
Now you'd get the person going, don't tell me to be quiet. I paid my money the same as you. It's like, yeah, I paid my money so you would shut the fuck up and watch the movie.
Yeah.
My mom used to talk through movies and I would shush her and she would say real loud, don't shush me. I'm like, oh, geez.
Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Like there's been a lot of times in my adult life now where I give a movie about 15-20 minutes, and if I feel like the crowd isn't going to actually like calm down, I'll just go and be like, can I have my money back, please? Like, because it's not working right now, and I'm just going to be annoyed for the hour and a half or 2 hours I'm in the theater.
There you go. That's smart.
It's smart, but it also wastes my time.
At least you get your money back instead of not having fun the whole time and then not getting your money back.
Yeah, like we went to go see Megan, was it a couple weeks ago? And it's like we went like it was like a Tuesday or something, and it's like, oh, it should be okay. And it's like Tuesday in the afternoon, and it's like there was like a family behind us that like we're watching the trailers. I'm like, oh, they're real loud during the trailers. This isn't going to go well. But it's like it's a killer doll movie, so I'm like, like what can you do? Like it was like, I mean, this isn't going to win the Oscar, so I understand where this movie's going. We're just going to watch it. It's fine. So that was
yeah, you didn't go to watch some Merchant Ivory film or some highbrow, Oscar bait.
Well, but it's like I've been like
at the same time.
Yeah, like you recently watched Wakanda Forever. I saw you posting about that, and I did too. Yes. I tried going to see the theater like once, and I misread the calendar, and I bought a ticket for an 11 p.m. show versus AM show. And I'm like, oh, no wonder the theater isn't open, because they're not open. So I was trying to counter, program my ability to go to the theater. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I wanted to see the theater. It just didn't happen. If I had went to see Wakanda Forever in the theater with the people that were watching Megan, I would have been volcanic. because I just want to watch that movie. You know, like I don't need them. Killer Doll movie, different. And I'm not saying a comic book movie is like high art, but it was one I was looking forward to. You know, so that's why I was like, well, if I'm not going to catch it now, I'm just going to stay home and watch it. Like I have a pretty big TV. I'll be okay. You know. Yeah. Like now with Ant-Man coming out, I'm gonna have to try to find a way. I might call in dead one day at work and go like a 1 o'clock show during the week. I've done that. Like I've called off well, now I don't have to. Like anyway, it's like I can schedule around things, right? But it's like there's times where I'm like, is it Wednesday at 1 o'clock? That's a good time to go watch a movie. I am the oldest person in the world when it comes to watching movies. Like, I've done
that myself. I've done that back in the day. If there was some movie I wanted to watch and I knew it was going to be crazy on opening weekend, I'd wait till a few days later, then be like, I can leave work early today, and then I'd go catch a movie.
Well, I think like I caught like one of the last showings of Shang-Chi before it was like 6 minutes before it went to Disney Plus. I think I ended up catching one of the last showings in the theater. I'm like, it's me and like 2 other people. This is perfect. You know, like I am not good for the theater industry. Like, I'll say that. Sorry. Anyway, I apologize. Fade to Black. You can tell how passionate I am about the movie Fade to Black.
So, Leiann, I want to get some of your perspective on this. I know you took some notes. So what are some things that stuck out to you that you wanted to take down? Because I know you have maybe a slightly different perspective, you know, as a woman and seeing this guy creepily stalk this woman throughout the movie.
Well, I think it's funny that you point out that one part. I had a lot of feelings about this movie because I really, really liked it. It was so over the top, and I have a really short attention span, and I was engaged the entire time. And I really liked, I forget the name of the main actor, but he was really good in it. I really liked the makeup, and he was obnoxious, but like perfectly obnoxious. Like he was the right instigator. He was perfect. Anyway, some of my notes involve things like ding dongs on a streetcar.
Yeah. One of the first lines we hear from one of the old films playing during the opening credits.
When we were still trying to figure out what was going on. Here we go. Weird crotch.
Which one?
I only paid attention to one, and then there was a scene, and I said it out. It's you know the scene where it's crotch heavy. Okay, the way he was laying on the bed, I told Jeff, I said I really hate his crotch, and he just went and grabbed his crotch. The actor did, not Jeff. Jesus, and I was like, me. Yuck.
I can tell you the first time she noticed it was the first time we see him at work in his little desk area. Then he has his Binford studio sign when he doesn't even have a studio. And she noticed exactly which way he gets dressed according to how his fellas were hanging and showing, you know. And then I couldn't stop looking at it because she had to point it out.
So okay, so here's a callback. Would you say that like you were looking at his Binford tools, trying to figure out what was going on?
Okay, you're not the only one that got the home improvement vibe from hearing his last name is Binford. Thank you.
Of course, right? That's why I just want to throw that out there. Yeah.
As soon as I saw the mailbox with the name Binford, I was like, "Is this the origin of Binford Tools?"
Yeah, I mean, he is a Binford tool. I'll say that.
Also, a lot of toupees in this movie.
Oh man,
yeah, as you do at the time, you know.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know if that
bad
means.
Ones. They were bad.
Well, I mean, it was 1980.
Yeah. Okay. Well, conservation kook and space case. Yeah, those were terms used.
Yeah, the guy Moriarty's like, it's like something about parking. He's like, yeah, I ride a bike, and the captain's like, of course he does. You're a conservationist.
And like, and as soon as he said that, I went, yeah, of course he does. Like, of course he would.
Like, okay, great. Like maybe it's still an area that you could just like ride your bike to and from work. That's not a bad thing. I don't know,
especially in LA, right?
Well, like this was Venice. I mean, you guys, I know you.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the geography of California because, like, I think I live in Ohio. Everything's 3 hours away, which is not the same as the rest of the country, right? So, which, by the way, I want to point out that police station, I swear to Christ, I can't prove it because I didn't go back and scrub through the film. That's the same police station from Assault on Precinct 13. I think it's the same one. Anyway, that's because I think it's the same station. Just, it's a little bit more brighter and there's not gangs attacking it. But anyway, I like how it's like, oh, you're a weirdo. You believe in trying to help people with words, not guns. You ride a bike. I'm glad that we're past that type of, like, I'm glad that we're, as a society, we don't judge people like that anymore. That's good.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
Also,
I just like that he was like, I've never effed a cop before, and it's like, do you use this gun? This loaded gun? It's like, also, we just had sex in this bed. You want some Ritz crackers? And just we're hanging out.
I know they came from under the covers. Why?
Like, why? No. I know everything's pretty good on our Ritz. Not that.
Yeah. I don't want any of the sex crackers. No.
Ugh. Anyway.
Well, okay, so we noticed that he was burning his aunt mom's books in the fireplace.
Yes,
one was Carrots Can Make You Well.
Yes.
Health for the Handicapped. And Prunes for Health.
Thank you for bringing up the titles. I was going to make a joke at the beginning of the episode. I cannot remember. I like that. He's just like, no. And then he went in the fridge. He was like, all vegetables out. I was like, he's living like this like meat-based diet like Jordan Peterson. It's like, no, I don't think that's a good call. You're going to get scurvy, buddy. Don't do that. Like, just,
He's just going to live on soda.
Soda. Yeah. Soda and cigarettes. He'll be And did you also catch his order at the diner that, like, it was it 2 chocolate donuts and like a hot dog with everything and then fries? Did you catch that?
And that's his usual. That's his usual.
I'm like, you weigh 7 pounds. How is that possible?
All the cigarettes and Coke.
Well, that's fair. Yeah.
I love this movie.
Or he just never eats it. He was there and he's like, oh, I'm going to order that, but I'm also going to hit on these women over here and then I'm going to leave. All right. Like, what? And then even later on, it's like there's that bit where he's like, that was it the one like walk up stand later, and he orders something like when he's like hanging out. That one guy's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Have you seen Marilyn Monroe walk out?" Or he's like, "She's been dead." He's like, "No, she isn't." And then he just like tosses all the food. It's like that dude's just working his job. You don't need to do that, dude. Like all that chili sauce all over the place. That has to be gross. Like,
yeah. One of my favorite parts is when he gets toward the end when he gets shot in his lung and continues to be able to scream for like half an hour.
He has amazing stamina after getting shot repeatedly for only weighing 7 pounds.
Right?
Yeah.
And then also he was feeding Marilyn so many pills. So many pills.
Yeah, we don't even know what happened to her. Like,
no. Like she got locked in a room, apparently on the roof of Grauman's Chinese Theater, never to be seen again.
I like that this film, it was made for was like 1.5 million at the time. How it was still really cheap to shoot in Hollywood. Like that would never happen now.
Oh no,
like it's like yeah. But yeah, like his lifestyle choices were questionable. But it's just like, it's almost like if you it's like you're living on your own for the first time. It's like no one tells me I can't have birthday cake every day. That's it feels like that's him where it's like no one can tell me what to do anymore. Like my aunt's in a jar and I want to just stuff out my cigarettes in her urn, and it's like I'm gonna be my own man. In fact, I'm gonna change my name to that of a movie character, and I'm gonna literally change the street sign, the designation of the street outside my house, because I'm sure that's a crime. Like if you go altering street signs, I'm sure like somebody's going to notice that and be like, dude, you just can't make up street names. Yeah. I don't think you could do that. That'd also be like, you know what, that stop sign, I'm just going to put it in my basement. You just can't take stop signs away from intersections. That's probably like a big safety hazard. I don't know. I'm certain it is. I've never stolen street signs, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah. But I like the idea too. Also, like that he is he has a fascination with kind of like the noir era, like he's definitely like Bogart and what was it? There's a couple. I saw some of the other.
Did you appreciate his black and white suit?
Yeah, I thought like that was cool. It's just also where are you getting that money from?
Right?
You know,
like all of a sudden he starts getting. Oh, you know what? He got it from his aunt.
Oh,
it was mentioned. Yeah.
But like he has like all the cutouts of like Cary Grant, and he tries to do a Cary Grant. He doesn't do a good Cary Grant.
No.
But it's like there's a whole thing there. There's a certain kind of vibe, and like even later on when he rents out like studio space, which that's questionable, but you literally see a Maltese Falcon like hanging out there. But
yep.
There's a lot of that.
But you know what? I question the security because the instructions are how to get in are right there, and everyone can just get in.
Yeah, that's some Resident Evil bullshit going on, right?
Right? It's almost welcoming people in, like, don't push this red button.
Yeah, like don't, if you push this button, I'm gonna pill you up, and we're gonna live in a fantasy world that's not gonna end well.
But what I think it sucks though, because when they first started, like when he gave her a ride to work or whatever, they were getting along so well, and I was hoping it would not be a horror movie and it would be like a romantic comedy. I was hoping them to work.
I was hoping for more of like a Carrie situation where it's like he's coming out of his shell and she's actually trying to like see him for being like, you know what? He's just this kid's passionate, and she's here from Australia, like for reasons,
And both of their parents, her parents died, and he didn't know, or the opposite, or something.
He knew one of them.
Well, he didn't know that he knew.
Yeah.
But it's like I think if you would have done it where it's like she's trying to like get him to come out of his shell, and she sees a kindred spirit where they both want to be successful, and like it's Hollywood. It's the land of dreams, right? I mean, sorry, it's filmmaking. I don't know in terms of geography, but it's movie making, right? Like that's where you want to be. And it's like everything's built upon, because even her friend, Marilyn's friend, was like, oh, there's this one girl that I knew from forever ago, and she tried to make it out here. And it's like, and then she's like, well, what happened? She's like, she killed herself because she didn't make it. I thought there was going to be a little bit more context there.
I missed that.
They're talking about that in the diner. Jeff, am I right about that? Because they're talking about how she, like the brunette was like, yeah, I had a friend that tried coming out here and didn't quite make it. And then Marilyn's like, well, what happened? She's like, oh, she killed herself.
Yeah, she took a shotgun, and
yeah,
she was very much like, you should be careful about trying to be famous, and that's all you want to do, because it could drive you fucking insane.
Yeah, but then even we get the end though, it's like, oh, Marilyn's like, yeah, this guy wants to take photos of me, and she's like, well, the brunette, it's like, I'm gonna be there for you, and it's like, oh, push for entry, all right, looks legitimate. There's a Maltese Falcon, it's clean in here. I'm gonna go. Like, what? Where? Like, you were this person that was worried for your friend the entire time. You're like, oh, it's well lit. Must not be a psycho. Later,
we thought the exact same thing. We were like, wait, is she just gonna leave?
Like,
she was insisting on coming along for her safety.
It was just like, I guess you're good. Out. Like, just
bye. Hope you don't need a ride home. See you later.
Hope you don't take any weird Alka-Seltzer tabs or whatever later.
They were huge.
I was going to make the joke, like the last 15 minutes of this film was like the worst Mentos commercial ever. It'd be like, it's like Mentos freshener. You just see him on top of the theater running around, like anyway. And I'm just shoving more Mentos in her mouth. Anyway, but like the friend was like, I'm worried about you. Seems good enough. Like,
meanwhile, he doesn't even hide that he's drugging her. He's like, yeah, take some more. And
she's like, well, that's what my family would have had me do had I known them in Australia.
I think he gave her some more and said, wake up or something, like time to wake up. It's like, is he giving her different types of drugs? Like, what is going on?
Is it like the Elvis mix? Like downers and
That's
uppers?
What I was thinking. Yeah.
It's just that whole thing is confusing. Also, like, it doesn't make sense earlier in the movie, and I'm bouncing all over, where he's dressed up as Dracula, right? But by the way, that makeup was good. I don't understand why he did the Two-Face split other than like, oh yeah, we get it, movie. Thank you.
I commented on that as well. So
Yeah.
we're on the same page.
No, it's an effective visual, but it doesn't make any sense.
And that was my point to Jeff. I said, why is he turning to that side? Who is she showing? What is he looking at? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So, but then like after, you know, he chases the hooker and then she ends up getting stabbed in the neck by like a picket fence. And it's like, it's so random. It's also kind of great, but kind of not. I don't know. Anyway.
I love that you're bringing up that scene.
It's just how she just ran away. And it's like, I guess I'm gonna get stabbed in the neck now. And he's like, and it's like, he touches. I was expecting more like he would touch the wound in her neck and be like, oh man, she's dead. And then maybe like, you know, be a creeper and like put the fingers to his mouth as opposed to full on, well, I guess I'm drinking her blood now. I'm like you know,
well, it's funny because when he was doing that, he was acting like he was going to touch it, and both me and Jeff are like, put it in your mouth, put it in your mouth, put it in your mouth. And then he did, but then he went straight for her neck. I'm like, ew.
Yeah. Also, like, you're gonna get wood bits in your mouth. I don't want that anyway. But
and I
also,
said splinters. So yeah,
it's like it's hooker blood, so you have no idea what's going on there.
You know, I mean, at any time it's a gamble, but especially at 1980. But one thing about that scene that I like, when he started to touch the blood, his face was like, oh, this is real. Yeah, and then it went to like, oh, what does it taste like?
He always waffles between himself and like, oh, maybe I'm the bad guy. Like, we don't get enough of that. I think that's what you're talking about, right? Where it's like, oh,
that
she's
moment
dead.
of clarity, and then right back into, in this case, the Dracula persona of, oh, well, I need to drink her blood now to sustain myself.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just weird because it seems like he's aware of the dichotomy, because we get later whenever, you know, like whenever he shoots Mickey Rourke when he's dressed up as Hopalong Cassidy, which I'm also going to argue he's dressed up more like one of the cowboys from that Primus video. What was it? What was it? Winona's Big Brown Beaver? Is that the video? Was that the one where they're all plastic cowboys?
I can't remember, but I think so.
It's like you're dressed up like as a plastic cowboy. It's calm down, you know. Anyway, so also like no one's gonna notice that. It's just anyway, that's a thing. But like he's aware because like he brings Mickey Rourke's like buddy to the police station. And he's like, well, if you couldn't identify him, nobody could. It's like, yeah, well, I don't know how many other people that I know would be weirdos having like props in their house. I don't know. It just feels like
he was completely acting like a weirdo the whole time. He never tries to hide acting like a weirdo. So yeah, he's definitely going to be at the top of the list.
Right? And be like, you know, like just, I'll see you on down the trail. He doesn't say that, but you know, just like whatever. Yeah. Yeah. But his whole taking personas from films, that's a cool idea. Like, I mean, for what it is, like, cheesy as all get out, right? That's a fun thought. There could be more fun there. Just I think the execution of this, especially whenever he is trying to induce a heart attack with Mr. Burger, which, by the way, somebody that is going to have heart problems with the last name Burger. Well, who saw that coming? But him dressing up as a mummy, stalking him around, like, and trying to force a heart attack. It's like, well, you know, also going to force a heart attack. I don't know. Turn all the lights off and scaring the dude. That also works too. But it's just like there's a whole thing where it's like, I get it. It almost feels like adjacent to. Do you remember like all the Scream knockoffs in the 90s, like urban legends? This feels kind of akin to that, where it's like it has to be an urban legend or else it doesn't matter. You know, like sure,
yeah, very much so. And I called that out because Leiann goes, "How's he gonna kill him? What's he gonna do?" I said he's probably trying to induce a heart attack, since we've already been told several times he has heart problems and is getting ready to go in for an operation. It was the only one that I knew was going to happen. So I'm like, okay, this was telegraphed from like one of the very first scenes in the movie. Yeah.
You didn't even have to do like a movie reference there, where you could just knock the pills out of his hand, right? And just been like, there's the film, what was it, the Michael Douglas film, Falling Down, where he on the golf course, right? And the guy is like, his heart seizes up, and then he just kicks the pills away from him or whatever. and just lets him collapse. It's like you could have, like, that could have been effective to be like, oh, you think you're so big, like you're nothing, and like you've been yelling at me this entire time. Like that could have been the one time where Eric could have been Eric, right? And nobody was around. It didn't have to be wrapped up in a mummy. Also, we didn't have a bit earlier in the film where Mr. Burger's like, you know what? Thank goodness I'm going to bypass soon. Thank goodness, because there's that Egyptology exhibit coming soon to the California that I'm terrified of mummies. Like, we never got that from him. That would have been amazing. Like, the one thing that scared him with mummies was never established. So, yeah, I like the idea. And Leiann, I'm glad that you enjoyed this film. This would be a fun movie to watch with a bunch of people, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I just think cohesively, there is some stuff that is lacking, and it is, and I feel bad because you invited me on the show, and I'll be like, hooray! Like, I'm right down the middle with this. Meaning, like, when I put this in Letterboxd, I gave it a 2.5 because there's plenty here that I think is good, but it doesn't quite get there. And some of his like folding into his movie personas is a good idea. I also think it's a credit to the actor, and this is going to sound backhanded, so forgive me, that his impersonations of like movie stars are goddamn terrible.
Horrible.
Yeah, but I think that's also kind of like, I think he was trying his best, meaning I think that the actor was trying their best, but I think if you watch the movie, you're like, this is a person so wrapped up in their head that they think they're being the best.
Yes, exactly. I think he was literally nuts. Like, I don't think he understood the consequences of the stuff he was doing and the stuff he was saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, but also, like, when he went and confronted the one director and producer, right, about him.
Yeah.
But he goes into the beauty parlor and he has the Tommy gun, which, where the hell do you find an active, like, actual Tommy gun, right? With the barrel clip? Like, yeah, that's not just something that's a lot around, right? Like, him having the other guns, I mean, it's America. You go to an In-N-Out, I'm sure they give you a gun. I don't know. But just, you're like, I want something animal style. And they're like, yeah, do you want a gun? Sure, 2 guns. That's fine.
It's off the menu.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's off the menu item. It's just like 9mm. There you go. Here's your gun. Whatever, right? Like, but like a Tommy gun, just like that's not really a thing that you just have. Like, that's not like, also, like, they don't make them anymore. Like, you know, with the like, I don't know. Yeah, like, yeah, I just thought that was great. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say, maybe wherever he bought that Packard that he was driving around in when he showed up to the salon, maybe it was like, hey, we got a Tommy gun that goes with this. It's vintage, you know, we'll throw it in for free.
Yeah, it's like, do you guys have live ammo? Of course we do. We're not idiots, you know. Like,
yeah. Would you like the violin case to keep it in too?
We call it the Saints Valentine's Day's package. Just, you know, it's fine. You know, like, it's fine. It's just whatever, you know, like, just, you know, it's the Capone special, right? Like, because it's okay to because he walked in with the gun there, and then later on when he goes in the theater, everyone's like, oh, they're more scared because, like, he's walking around with a woman, like with Marilyn being like under duress, as opposed to an active gun. I don't know. It just feels weird to me that everybody's pretty okay with guns just being a thing. Like, you know, oh, he has a gun. Oh, okay, whatever. Which, I don't know. Unless it's Texas in this day and age.
Yeah.
But yeah, he shows us the full Tommy gun to the beauty salon. But he says everybody scram or whatever, right? And they all leave. And it's like, and he turns the gun on the producer. You talk about him being like nuts. He is, but he's aware of why he's singling this guy out, right? So Eric knows that his idea got taken.
Right.
The only way he can justify it is like, well, I have to put this mafia persona to make, like, it's almost like I have to give myself permission to kill this guy. And I have to do it.
That makes sense.
You know, like I can't do it, but mafia guy can, you know, like, you know, so like, I don't like, also when he was like, you know, Woody from Toy Story shooting Mickey Rourke. Reach for the sky. It's like, what are you talking about? He's like, there's a snake in my boot. And I was like, you're talking gibberish, whatever. It's just like, I get it. It's like, well, I didn't do it. Hopalong Cassidy did it. Like that feels like that disassociation of like Norman Bates. But there's enough there where Eric is being Eric. And it's like, I don't buy it. So that's frustrating. Right. It's like, that's all. It's like, like if he would have like, and also I feel like watching this film, and I know this would never happen because one, it wouldn't make no sense, but also it's like, could you imagine like an update of this film with like Tom Holland in that role?
Oh,
because I think he would have the chops to pull off everything.
Yeah. I think you're right.
But also he's too Tom Holland to not be like, oh, he's not a loser. I love him.
He's too likable.
But it's like, but you could see him making himself kind of. There's that film came out a couple years ago called Cherry, which I need to watch, that he did with the Russos, which I heard is kind of a slog. But he wanted to play like a troubled character because he didn't want to be Spider-Man for everything. I'm like, rightfully so. You want to be challenged, right? So like but something like where you have this like love of movies and you have this chameleon-esque character, I think someone like him would be able to pull it off, and that way you could still be kind of rooting for him, but also being like, oh man, that darkness is pulling on you. I'm not saying I get this actor. I get why he's doing this, but I would appreciate that when you're doing the thing that you're doing, I buy the thing you're doing versus this kid that's kind of being, it's like, do you know those people that were raised being super confident because like their parents told them they could do whatever they want, but then they turn out that they can't do a goddamn thing.
Right.
You're like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a good singer. No, you're not. Oh, I'm really funny. No, you're not. I'm a really good sports person. No, you're not. Like I just would have been great for like somebody to actually like find out like, what, he actually does have a knack for this. Wrong place, wrong time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like there's a good movie in here somewhere, and I'm gonna say it. I actually really had fun with this, despite the fact that it's corny and over the top, and there are so many leaps of logic in this. But there's little glimpses of what could have been. Like when he's going back and forth and knows what he's doing, but is like, I can't do it, but this alter ego can. I almost would have liked it if they didn't have him show up and kind of say why he was there, but maybe like sees the TV playing the producer who he randomly met out of nowhere. We have no idea why he's hitchhiking and gets picked up by this producer. Did I miss something there, guys? Did I miss where there was?
Oh, no. You missed as much as how the police started figuring out that this kid's involved with everything.
Okay, thank you. We both called that out
because they knew he was dressed as a mummy, but the security guard left. So who saw him?
Yeah, right. They're like also like, oh, this kid is obsessed with movies, and the police chief's like, no, he's just give me results and get away from here, you jerk, or whatever. He was like yelling at him. Yeah, there was one of those things where it's like, man. You know what? Maybe a fifth pass at this script. You could have had something a little bit more here. Yeah, but don't worry. We definitely had sex in bed with Ritz crackers. That was important to put in the movie. Yeah, but continue. What you're saying
and masturbation. Yeah.
No, but like I get that. Like I'm not saying that I want to see weird crotch or anything, but like there is that fulfillment portion, right? And there's the bit too where he is like looking at Marilyn Monroe. And then he goes from desiring to being angry at her because she's unobtainable. Like, right. That is something that's like, that's very Norman Bates. That's very in 2023 incel, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So it's just like, there is like, because you set up in your mind, like, what is the perfect girl, right? Who is the Ramona Flowers, right? Like, and it's like, oh, but wait, they're real people and they have their own world, and maybe you're not the perfect person for them. you put something on a pedestal, it's never going to be, even if you get what you think you get, because even then when he does the photo shoot and she's like, oh, I'm here, and he's looking the same, he's just dressed up in like fancy dress, like cool, great. Also, a photographer dresses up as like a lord from 1913. I don't know, that's weird. I've never been to a photo shoot. Don't think that's how that goes. But how she's okay with it until she's like, oh, I know who you are. Like, well, okay, great. Don't you think that would have been a red flag? That he presented himself as somebody that's not, rented a studio space with a different name, has a full area where there's actually like literally no photography, like the big lights and the umbrellas for like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, like the big silver for like, like for catching light and putting it the right where he's just like, and then he just talks in this weird accent the entire time. Like, I mean, maybe she hasn't been to a lot of photo shoots, but I'm going to say that maybe that's not the way it goes.
But then again, she did like randomly start talking to him, at the cafe or whatever, and left with him. So she's very trusting.
But it's like she just wants to see where things go. And if we would have gotten a little bit more from her, where maybe she's also kind of a little like delusional, which we kind of get that, but
I got that definitely.
Yeah. But I mean, like I'm saying it's an 80-20 split where it's like she's 20% delusional, he's 80% delusional. Like just I don't know.
But I mean, there's a point in
yeah, go ahead, please.
Go ahead, you first, and then I'll make my point.
It's your show. It feels like a Joker Harley Quinn situation where it's like he's the crazy one and she is too, but you see her reasons, but he's completely batshit. I think that's what they're aiming for before that was a thing.
That makes sense.
It doesn't come across that way, so.
No, and I mean, we have a point in the film where her friend looks at her and goes, you're really naive. And she goes, oh, thank you. And I yelled at the TV. That's not a compliment.
Like, good day.
Like, she's telling you, stop being so naive and trusting of everyone. You're going to get yourself murdered.
She's like, thanks. Somehow I ended up here in California from Australia. I don't, for reasons? I don't know.
Yeah. That, and then just randomly seeing pictures on a billboard. Oh, this guy took photos of this. Oh, he's got a photo shoot for me scheduled for tonight. Nobody schedules photo shoots at night unless they're wanting to do things of a horrible nature to you.
I wish that billboard would have been listed as Craig's list. Like nothing bad happens on Craigslist. Yeah,
oh man. Oh no, so many things.
Just the idea of delusion, and I'm trying to think. I was going to put this to you guys, like in the future. I'm talking like maybe a couple of months down the line. One of my favorite films, it keeps going up and up on my list is there's an animated film from Japan from mid 90s, Perfect Blue, that I've talked about on Invasion of the Podcast a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if either one of you have seen that. If you've not,
it's on my list.
I adore that film. But it also deals with the blurring of like celebrity and obsession. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be, I wouldn't call it a bookend. I think there is a more satisfying conversation with the way that film plays out in terms of obsession, delusion, and fantasy. Where this film is speaking to this, and we get hints of it, but there is something that is there's something lacking. And when I again, like I put this like right down the middle of like, you know what, I did enjoy watching this for being a blind watch, so I do thank you for suggesting this. There are problems I have with it, but I would love to bring to you guys later sometime Perfect Blue to visit that, because there's a lot there I think that is handled better than what we got with this. That's what
I'm down.
Yeah, same here. It's on my list, of course, because I heard you talk about it on your podcast. Now, that sounds interesting. This sounds really interesting. I'm putting it on my list.
Get the Blu-ray because there are versions of it available where the English dub is able to easily see, but there's bits where there is text on the screen that isn't translated in terms of like, this is dating itself, fax machines and things that there isn't translations for, that maybe you should get the Blu-ray for yourself so you can see everything going on. But I think that's this film tries to be De Palma, but like not quite like De Palma, it's a De Palma film. No, it's not quite there. It's like it wants to be a Hitchcock film. Not really though. Like it wants to be a bullseye, but it's like when it'd be like me playing darts and it would hit the wood outside the board of the dartboard and hopefully not somebody's hand while they're like holding a beer. It wants so much to be something that it has a lot to say. It doesn't have the right vocabulary to say it with. Much like me tonight talking.
No. Like our good friend Okoro says, you always bring something to the table that is very much coherent and you have a lot of good things to bring up. So I'm going to reiterate what he tells you all the time.
No, like I bring him I'm like, I drew a turkey. You're like, that's the best hand turkey I've ever seen. I'm like, thank you. Like, yeah. No, he's the brains, and I'm that guy that gets killed first in the movie because I was like screwing around and playing Nintendo, not paying attention. So.
Oh, you and I are pretty much the same guy then, because that's me as well. We're both sitting there. We're playing Street Fighter 2, and we don't realize Jason's behind us with a weed whacker, just getting ready to take us both out.
Like, he can wait. Like I actually have a combo because I'm just button mashing. It's fine. This film has a lot. It's frustrating. When I compare it to a canon film, because there's a lot of things where it's like they're like, yeah, like we want to say a lot because like, oh, we're going to do a thing. It's going to be different. It's going to be interesting. It's like, yeah. Are you going to give me any money? No. Like, am I going to expect you to shoot this in 3 days? Yeah. Like, it's just, there is something here. It's missing something. And, in terms of being cheesy and corny, this would be a fun movie to just put on in the background, have people watch and dip in and out of. Perfectly fine. There's plenty of this, right? It's just, right. I think that it's just, I guess it's just frustrating because there are bones here, and it just doesn't. There's not enough connective tissue to make the whole thing work. That I guess it's my final analysis.
Yeah, that's exactly how I came away. Like I said, I really had a good time because it is one of those movies that you can just throw on like at a Halloween party in the background just to play.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take a whole lot to sit there and really get what's happening. You can basically decipher what's happening very quickly, despite the leaps in logic and, some of that connective tissue you mentioned not being there. This is something that could have been a whole lot better had there just been a few more things done to just tell that story a little more cohesively. Like, give us a little something how the cops figured it out, because it just seems like they just went, oh yeah, we totally figured it out. You don't need to know why, but we know it's him.
Like, what if we would have had Moriarty? I see what you did there. Be a movie buff himself, right? Like, what if he was like a guy, like, he's like, you know what? The best way to understand people is to kind of like I believe in art. And he brings, Chris Pine's mom to a movie theater. Like, you could have had, maybe that could have been them crossing paths at like the watching Night of the Living Dead, right? There could have been something there. There could have been like a little bit more where it's like he is more in tune to like the mind versus just like, I'm going to just do cocaine and play a harmonica. And my office is in the drunk tank. It makes no sense. This is, I put this at the feet of like, I understand this is like a cheaply made film. And actually, I guess it did pretty well overseas. Ended up making his money back and then some, credit to that. Right. But
nice. Good for them.
Yeah. I think it made a lot of money in France. I don't know, maybe because of the black and white vampire stuff. I don't know. It's like a mime. It's like a mime, but it eats people. But it's like, it's just, I always put at the feet of like, you think the script is good enough to go in front of the camera? Give it one more pass. Like, give the script to somebody that has not read your other revisions, and have somebody be like, does this make sense? And not just hand wave it away. You know, like I think a lot of films suffer. It's like, no, it's fine. Like, they'll get it. It's like, well, if I don't get it, then do they get it? Like you could have had. I guess this film has like a cult status to it. Fair enough, but like, I don't know. If I saw this growing up, there maybe I wouldn't have thought about it so much. But it's like, but watching it now, I think it's not fair to be like, you give me a reason to see why it's cult status. You know, like I can go back and watch Evil Dead and be like, I get it. You know, Night of the Living Dead, I get it. This one, it's like, you know, it's almost there, and there's fun. And I'm sorry, Leiann, I know you had a lot of fun with this film. Don't get me wrong. It's just that, like, it's just something is like, yeah, it's a good time with a group of people, but it's not something I'll be like, you know, we should watch Fade to Black. You know, like, well,
I think, you know, I like how it looks. I like that there's always something going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things going on, like, you know, murders and, you know, dressing up in makeup and acting like an asshole and all this stuff. And I just find it really entertaining. I don't really have the intellectual status to back it up. I just had fun with it.
I don't think this is an intellectual film. So like,
no.
Like I think the smartest joke of this film was also kind of the dumbest, which is whenever she's was it Marilyn's drinking wine and she goes to take a shower with her makeup on, and then you know, Binford shows up dressed as Dracula, and then he goes, it's a Psycho homage, which we all like clearly play day, right? But he's like, I just wanted an autograph. I'm like, that's stupid, right? But the fact
I thought so too.
He drops the fountain pen, right, and the floor of the shower, and so to me the smart joke is you're shooting the shower sequence in color, and you're seeing black ink swirl the like the tub, right? Knowing when they shot the shower sequence in Psycho was in black and white, and that the blood was chocolate syrup that was brown and black. So it's like there it's effective because it's supposed to look like blood because it's this chocolate syrup. Here it's like, oh, you're shooting it in color. We're going to actually show you black ink. That's the only thing where it's like, we're going to take the piss out of you. I'm like, okay, I see what you did there. But it's also like, you went like the longest way around to make this joke. You know? Yeah. So it's like, it's one of those things I'm like, I appreciate that. You went 15 miles out of the way to make that happen. You know, like, so. Anyway.
Also, again, no idea how he found out where she lived or how he even showed up there. He just shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah. Right. And then, we also see like there's other, like, what was it? There's all his posters in his room. There's one for Frenzy, which is a Hitchcock film I've not seen yet. And it's on my list. So it's like, there's a lot of influences that you see this stuff coming from a mile away. Right. But it's like, you know, like it's just, but also it's like, yeah, he knows that she works at the roller skating rink, which employs like 8 people at the same time. Well, that's a different time and place, right? Like, what was it? Skateland USA, I think was the name of it, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes,
yeah,
it was.
You know, the booming business that is roller skate rinks. You know, I know they exist now, but it's like, you're overstaffed if there's 3 people there.
Yeah.
You know, like, you got to have somebody work the cash register, one to hand out the skates, and then somebody like making sure gum doesn't get stuck to places. That's about where we're at right now, right? Like, gotta have the cleanup person.
Yeah. Who's also going to maintain the 2 arcade machines they've had in the building since 1983.
It's like, oh, the skee ball machine. Well, it works most of the time, not all the time.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling, but it has its merits. It's just it's very challenging because I wanted to love this movie. It just it kept failing me. Much like Eric. I'm kidding. I don't know what that means, but I was wanting this to be like a hidden gem, right? Like I wanted this to be like, oh shit, I've never seen Fade to Black. This is like one of those ones. It's like, but I feel like this is one of those ones that like, if people have an interest in like weird, like late 70s, 80s horror, like slasher type of things, like, hey, dip your toes in, like, you know, watch Halloween, watch Black Christmas. And if you want to get weird, we'll get weird, you know, like this is like, you know, like just push it off a little bit. If it's like, if you like everything else, we'll keep going. This should not be somebody else's first. This should not be the first barrier for entry for somebody. That I guess that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, fair enough. I get that. So, okay, I want to do a quick little thing here before we finish off. I just want to ask you guys a couple more questions here. Leiann, would you recommend anybody see this, Leiann?
100%.
Okay. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, for sure. But again, like asterisk attached to it, right?
Right.
Meaning like if you've seen some of this other stuff, I'd also even recommend like if you could watch something like 10 to Midnight with Charles Bronson and be like, oh, that was a fun, weird movie, then check out this. Which if you've not seen 10 to Midnight, it's a canon film that Charles Bronson's like trying to like find this like stalker raper guy, and there's a bit where he actually confronts somebody like while he's in the police station. He's holding a large dildo and just like shakes in their face and yells at them. Like, come on, like you can't tell me that's not like Oscar magic.
I remember you talking about that scene, and I was like, I have to find this movie and watch it for that scene alone.
10 to Midnight's a lot of fun, but it makes just as much sense as this film. But if you're like, oh, you know what, I'm in. I like as much as like I know Steve and I are divided about a film like New Year's Evil, which I don't think is very good at all. I would recommend this like over New Year's Evil, which is not a very good film. It makes even less sense than this. But yeah, if you want to like weirdly slasher, that you could do way worse. Like, I mean, like the first what was it? The Santa that was it Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Mm-hmm.
Watch that one first.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, yeah, people should watch it. I think with a caveat of you need to be someone who is, I think, a fan of horror and not just like a mainstream. Yeah, I go to the theater and watch Scream, or I've seen, Halloween. I know those. Like, we're talking, you've delved into the further depths of the horror genre, into the 70s stuff. Like if you've seen The Baby, watch Fade to Black.
I mean, if you've seen The Baby, then you've already been inoculated. Because I mean, I know you guys watched it for your show. I love The Baby.
It's fantastic. Me too. It's fantastic.
Because it's weird and it threads the needle and it finishes. Right? It finishes. It actually has a button on that movie that has no right being as like, oh yeah, it all kind of makes sense. What? Anyway, so yeah. And I have my Blu-ray copy that I have. I've seen that movie like 5 or 6 times now, and everyone's like, "Have you not seen The Baby?" And it's like, "Let me show you The Baby." And it was like a year ago. I had a friend of mine over who had watched that. Like I've shown it to him like a one time or other, but his girlfriend was over, and like we're talking about something. He was like, "Don't mention The Baby." I'm like, "Have you seen The Baby?" He's like, "Son of a bitch!" Like he just was very upset.
No,
if you're in for weird, that yes. But if like if you were about that, then this is perfectly. It's in your wheelhouse. I think that's assessment. Yeah.
Now, one other thing here is there any particular scene that stood out to you guys? Like you really liked something about, like, Leiann, I know you liked it a lot. Paul, I know you have your issues with it, but came away, liking it enough. Is there anything that stood out to you guys? Leiann, I'm going to throw this to you first, that you really like, just one thing that was done really well that you appreciated.
My favorite is when he's driving her to work, because they're getting along so well.
You have decent chemistry, right? It's like actually
You see her kind of come out of her shell a little bit, and I just thought it was really sweet.
And it would have been paid off a little bit better had there been a movie running at the theater at the end, because he was like, I want to own my own theater and show the movies I want to watch.
Right.
If we at least had like, something running on the screen that him running up to the theater, right, with her. That would have been a good dovetail payoff, right?
Instead of punching it.
Sure.
Oh my God. I was like, you clearly don't love film, sir, if you're punching it.
This is a screen made of material. I'm angry. Anyway, yeah. No, like in terms of like what I liked, I mean, I'm just trying to think like what would be my favorite scene. I don't know. Like the one that just annoyed me because it's just like that, like, how dare he, was Mickey Rourke stealing the large bear from the one carnival game. That is right. Yeah. And then after winning like the tiny pig, right? And he's just like, oh, I don't want girls to see me with this pig. It's like, what are you? Okay. And it makes his buddy like ride bitch and carry this big bear. And he's like, chicks love it.
He's like, then you carry it.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's not a great scene, but I was like, this makes no sense. Like, like what are you gonna do? Like, go off the boardwalk, like, and be like, hey, ladies, you want this large bear I have right now? Yeah. I guess you're DTF because of this large bear.
But then with the other thing he was carrying, he just chucks it.
Yeah, just takes that pig and just throws it, like, yeah. So I thought that was funny. It just didn't make any sense. Like, yeah, again, not a good scene. It's the one I worked a couple of years on at an amusement park where I worked a Midway games area.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my own personal feelings about somebody stealing shit from a game, but yeah, like, good on you. You got shot. You deserve that. That's not what I'm saying about people. Yeah, like it resonated with me. I'll just put it that way.
I can see that. I also worked at an amusement park on the food service side, but yeah, I know how frustrated people in the games got when people were trying to steal stuff. It's like, really?
Okay. What park did you work at?
Knott's Berry Farm.
Knott's Berry Farm. I worked at Cedar Point under the same because Knott's was bought out by Cedar Fair.
Yeah, the year I started was the year Cedar Fair acquired Knott's Berry Farm, 1996.
So I worked 96 to 2000 at Cedar Point.
Oh my God, that's the same. Are we the same person? Are we having an Eric Binford moment here?
As one of the two wives involved, I hope you're two different people.
That's fair. No, I real quick, I worked was it like kind of 2 years like in games, and the third year I was like I was in the arcades maintenance division, which was like I was basically a janitor and dealing with games. And then like the fourth year I worked at like an area called Challenge Park. But yeah, I worked at the company and ended up buying your park that you worked at. So
yeah,
not that I'm not asserting dominance. I'm just saying it's what happened.
Yeah, essentially we were part of the same amusement park family. I did all 4 years in food service.
God, and you're stronger than me. You're stronger than me.
And it's funny because it started out when I worked there, it was the Roaring Twenties area. And then the next summer it had been revamped to the boardwalk. So it was this surfer theme. So I hate the Beach Boys with a passion now.
Oh, but why?
Oh, I could go into it, but that would be a whole other 2 hours.
That's a whole. I think at some point we should just do a brief side about our own amusement park experiences. I think that'd be really funny.
Oh yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Susan marches. There was a bit where there's a whole thing we could talk about there, but I think it's funny that you and I worked almost identical years on different parts of the country for the same company.
Yeah, the exact same company, almost the exact same time frame. It's crazy.
So
small world.
So yeah, so Mickey Rourke stealing stuffed animals. You know what? I'm okay with your fate. I'll just put it that way.
Now, my favorite standout was actually ties into that scene you mentioned, Paul, because I like the reveal of his Hopalong Cassidy. Not only because one, did it look creepy, but two, everything about it was black and white. There was no color to it. He made himself look like he had stepped off the screen. It was creepy as hell. The mask was fucking terrifying.
Yeah, and like didn't the fog and the mist that works, but it's also like, yeah, it just I get it, but also like he was trying to like stand with like his frame being wide, and I'm like, I'm sorry, Binford, you like you look like a scarecrow with like cowboy clothes on. Like,
yeah, when you could see that he had like a size 3 waist. It's like, okay.
It's like Twiggy trying to pull a gun on somebody. Like, I don't know about this.
And we spoke to it a little bit earlier. Like, we kind of wish we got his POV maybe of how he was seeing things in those moments. So yeah. He looks like he literally stepped off the screen. His entire costume is black and white. Now, I wish, like, when we were seeing things just from the regular filming perspective, of Mickey Rourke making the stupid decision of staying there going, hey, man, what's the problem? What did I do to you? I didn't do anything, when the guy's got a gun pointed at him.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't stick around for that. But I wish they would have cut maybe to Eric's view and showed us maybe everything looking in black and white and aged, and, the noise and the scratches on the film that you get from something that, I'm trying to,
I agree, but like, what if you would have had what's his face holding the bear, right? But then whenever you got from Eric's point of view, it would have been like a damsel in distress, like where he's like trying to be the hero. It sees himself like that would have like how that would it wouldn't have been that hard, and it would have been value added because you're talking about like the grainy, like the TV footage. You could do that at that time, and it would have been fine. And
Exactly.
Because in Eric's mind, every single time he is the one that has been, he's the wronged, he's the victim, right? And so why not, right? Like, what if we would have done the perspective of the hooker running away? When she's running away, she's like in the full like Victorian dress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like running towards some villagers with like torches and pitchforks, and she stumbles, and when she gets her neck stabbed through, we think it's just we find out it's just like somebody's front yard. Like that would have added so much to this. I think that'd have been cool.
Yeah, there's little things they could have done. So
the
ultimately,
budget could have been $17 versus $16, and they could have made this work.
Right.
Anyway,
so ultimately, the three of us, say, yeah, check it out. I mean, there's the caveats that we said, but yeah, we all came away with something from this film, having all watched it the first time, and nobody outright hated the film, which is a good thing.
I like the sound.
Just like pause after I said well, it's like, I don't know.
No, Leiann, it sounds like you enjoyed this a lot more than Jeff and I, which is fine. Like, I mean, good, right?
Well, the thing is, I don't really I'm not as into movies as you guys are, like in a brain level. I just like the entertainment factor. So I kind of see it from a different perspective.
That's good. Like, why would you watch things you didn't like?
Yeah.
So I think I think it's completely valid, right? So I think that's fair. It's like I was mentioning earlier, like 7 hours ago. Like, there's times I bring things to my wife where I'm like, I like this. Can we please watch this? And like, I try to bring her why I enjoy a thing. So it's like, and if she enjoys it on a different level than myself, or a different, like, that's good too, right? Like, I think that you can't. I think it's unfair. The older I get, the more I realize that, like, it's easy to look down the bridge of your nose at somebody and be like, oh, you like that? Like, don't rob somebody of the thing they enjoy. You might have your opinions, right? And like,
as they say, don't yuck someone else's yum.
Like that phrase. No, but I get what you're saying. No, it's just like, enjoy what you enjoy. And it's like, I can't rob you of that. I have my opinions, and if somebody asks me directly, I'll give you my opinions, but I'm not going to like actively tell somebody why what they're liking is wrong, unless it's the Boondock Saints. Other than that,
Wow. Shots fired.
You know what my opinion about the Boondock Saints is? If that's one of your favorite films, watch a second film. How about that? That's going to be my opinion.
Okay.
And the second one can't be the Boondock Saints 2. You have to watch a second different film, right? No, but no, it's just like, you enjoy what you enjoy, because there's plenty of things that like I adore that people are just like that. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just do. One of my favorite dumb comedies of all time is the unrated cut of Saving Silverman. It's not a good movie. I love that movie. Mm-hmm. It tickles me. I'll like another movie I love a great deal, Hot Rod. People say it's a dumb movie. I love Hot Rod so much, but there's people who don't like it.
I finally saw Hot Rod. I think it was last year. Lockdown and all that, the last couple of years has thrown my time frame off, but I saw it within the last year or so, and I loved the hell out of that movie.
Yeah, but some people don't like The Lonely Island. They don't like Andy Samberg. Like, I get it, right? But it's like, I adore that film, right? So I can't tell somebody. Yeah,
it knew exactly what it was going in. It wasn't like, look, we're trying to be something else. It was like, look, this is exactly what this movie is. And, hate it or love it. And I don't know why so many people are like, oh, it's not good. It's like, give it a second watch. Turn off your analytical brain. Turn off your enjoyment brain.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know. It's just, so I can't tell somebody like if they enjoyed Fade to Black and it's part of like their, big, like, this is a cult classic. I can't tell them they're wrong. I'm just saying, like, maybe it's also one of those things. It's like, maybe if I would have watched it in like my formative years of watching movies, maybe it would hit me different. So I can't speak to like what my teenage self would have responded to this film versus what I see now. So
Right.
yeah. Anyway, so that's all. Like, if you guys liked it, cool. If not, cool. But I'm 44-year-old curmudgeon, that was right down the middle. Like, I always get frustrated with potential. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, it could have been so much more, as opposed to what did I get? Like, is this like did I get the Little Caesars pizza, like hot and ready, versus like, another fancy restaurant pizza? Like,
well, let's put it this way. Was it worth the $1?
I mean, maybe. No, I'm kidding. It was worth $1.
Good.
Yeah, barrier for entry, $1.
Good. I'm glad it was worth the $1. And
I will be invoicing you for $1 later. I'm kidding. No.
I will get that back to you in installments over the next 3 years.
There's going to be interest, so you might have to owe me $2.
Fair enough. So, Paul, I want to thank you. This was a lot of fun having you on, man. This was a blast as always.
Oh, well, thank you. I know I'm always that over talking, like belligerent asshole. So that's what I am. So
no, that's good. We like that.
Talk to my wife.
No, I enjoy when somebody comes to the table and we're able to have a discussion and they have a lot to say. It makes for an interesting conversation to me. And I think it makes for an interesting podcast. And speaking of podcasts, Paul, you have 2 that you do. You want to tell us a little bit about those in case nobody has heard of them before?
Sure. I don't know. So yeah, I do the one Invasion of the Podcast with my co-host Steve, which we cover a multitude of things like pop culture related movies. We're going to do more of a focus once a month on comic books because Steve is a comic creator. So we're going to do a little bit more focus because that's where his passion is at. And we recently have had some discussions about other comics. That would be always good there. I know we talked about the very challenging film Skinamarink recently. Check it out, everybody. Your mileage may vary there. But I know we're going to be talking about the Death of Superman comic art whenever we come back. Yeah, because we've been circling that for a bit. We just haven't gotten to it. But I know we did talk about Skinamarink, our most recent episode. So go check out Invasion of the Podcast. It's like we're also right now, we have done a year of Carpenter, which John Carpenter's one of our favorite directors, creators, right? So we were going to do a year in 2022 was going to be like, we're going to do a John Carpenter film a month. And then about halfway through, I'm like, yeah, we should probably run this out. So now we're doing another year of Carpenter. So, so we're going to get through the rest of his filmography. So we're covering a Carpenter film a month. We just recently covered, we did all Body Bags and then a joint episode with our friends at the Devil's Ball talking about In the Mouth of Madness. So the next one we're getting into, I think, is Village of the Damned. Or sorry, Children of the Damned. Whatever the last one where Christopher Reeve was walking before he fell off.
Village of the Damned, a remake of the older film. Yeah.
So we're getting into that sometime next month. Check that out, Invasion of the Podcast. If you guys want a 4-hour rambling podcast between two people that goes into various directions, like, it's a good time. I enjoy Steve. I love him so much. It's just, we get into our tangents, and that's what we have. We get into our cups, we get into our tangents. Second series I do is one that Leiann knows a little bit about. It is a show called Strange Highways, in which myself and my co-host Terry, my other podcast husband, we've been watching The Twilight Zone in sequence. Well, kind of. We covered the original series, seasons 1 through 5, and then we covered the now removed Paramount Plus Jordan Peele 2 seasons. But we're now into the 80s edition of The Twilight Zone. And it is there is good to be had there, but like, it is peaks and valleys. And the valleys, like, it is some tough sledding. However, what I will say about that is, one, go YouTube. You can find most of the segments on YouTube or Googling it, because for whatever reason, CBS doesn't give a shit about the 80s edition. So nobody cares if it's out there for people to watch. you can find it.
Right.
I would argue the people's like, I love the Twilight Zone. I'm like, do you? Because it's like you've seen 5 episodes. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you and I are both Twilight Zone snobs.
not even snobs. It's just like, it's like, oh yeah, I love the Twilight Zone. Cool. And I'm not gonna be like, name 7 Twilight, but it's like, I feel like there's like, it's like, what I'm saying is like, there are amazing highs to the series, original series. The Jordan Peele stuff, there's some good episodes there too. And there's been some good segments of the 80s series so far. But I feel like it's one of the situations where it is, before you have your cake, you got to eat your vegetables. And there is some dog shit segments that we've run into. But they're all worthy of discussion. And because this was produced, people put time and money behind it. Let's get into it. Because then you can appreciate the highs so much more when you go through the absolute terrible stuff. Right. So maybe it sounds like I'm being a glutton, but Terry's a good sport. We have a good time. The most recent segment we covered was called Tooth and Consequences, which is bad. It's real, real bad. And it's funny because I had seen it before Terry did. And he texted me like, was a couple days before we were recording. He was like, trash, pure trash. I'm like, what are you talking about? He just sent me a text out of the blue saying trash. I'm like, did I say something bad? Like I was in your wedding party. Like, what did I do? Did I do something bad? And he's like, no, Tooth and Consequences. I'm like, yeah, it's been bad. So, and Leiann, credit to you. You have suffered through a lot of the discussion.
I really enjoy listening to you guys. You guys are so much fun.
My goal is always to get Terry, catch him off guard. And
yeah, those are good times.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. So Invasion of the Podcast, Strange Highways. That like I shouldn't be like, everybody check out my stuff, but like if you guys want to, please do. The more the merrier. The people that it just the more people involved in the conversation, the better, right? It's more fun that way. And Leiann, I hope you appreciate that my social media posts on Strange Highways recently had just been animal photos versus from Tooth and Consequences. I'm like, I'd rather show cute baby animals than anything. It's a bit that nobody's really latched onto, but I think it's funny. So yeah. I've been watching Twilight Zone for 6+ years now. I deserve something. Every so often we got to pull that ripcord and be like, nah, we're good. So I've talked too much about me anyway.
Well, I will include links to your shows and the social media where they can follow you guys in the show description. I highly recommend you go check out their shows because they're a lot of fun. I, in particular, love getting lost in episodes of Invasion because I feel like the person who's like a third person in the conversation. Because
you're like, it's 2.5 hours in. Are they done yet? No.
I find myself talking back to you guys, even though you can't hear me because it's recorded. Just because, I have my own opinions and I'll just say them out loud because it's like having, it's like being a part of the conversation almost. So it's a lot of fun.
That's always the goal. Thank you for saying that. The goal with everything I do. And I've trained my husbands to understand that no matter what we do, there's always the third person. And it's the listener, right? Like, because you guys know from recording podcasts, it's like you can have a conversation and you can make your inside jokes. And I'm not saying you in particular, but I'm saying one of the things that really frustrates me is that you listen to something and it's like the wall's put up because like 2 people are talking and I'm not allowed in. My goal has always been, we're always including the third person. And, so that, and the third person is you, right? Like that's a winner is you. And so for you to say that, I appreciate that because I'm always aware of the person that can't say something. So I'm always thinking of the third person and I'm not trying to pat myself in the back and breaking my arm. It's just, I don't know. That's how I engage with things. So I want to pay it forward.
Exactly. And that's kind of what we try to do here is try and let like a third person be involved, even though we can't hear you speaking. We want it to feel like you're having a conversation, and that's what we all strive to do. And it's just fun. Doing all this,
of course. But yeah, thank you for having me on for this. And then again, I challenge you guys. Maybe in a couple, a month or two. I don't know. I'm always overbooking myself because I'm a glutton. I would love to come on here to talk about Perfect Blue. Because we already covered on Invasion, so because during your animation a couple years ago, and it was one like I caught Steve sideways with it because he'd never seen it before. That was a fun talk because I again I like catching people flat-footed. It's funnier that way, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll definitely do that. We'll get together behind the scenes. We'll schedule it, and we'll do that. And again, Paul, I want to thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure. And as far as us, you can check us out all the podcast platforms. Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, all that good stuff. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're all there. Search Skewered Universe, Skewered U. We're there. You can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Skewered Universe Podcast. You can support the show there, get some bonus episodes in the form of transmissions that I do. There's soon to be some commentary tracks that we have slacked on. I know, but we're getting them together. Trust me. And we're also an affiliate with Podbean. I'll leave a link in the description. You guys can go get a free month with a paid unlimited plan to start your podcast, because ultimately, if you like listening, you might like creating. Get your voice out there like El Goro says all the time. I'm kind of taking a page from his book, but it's out of respect for the man because I appreciate what he does. Use that link. We'll give you a month for free. We do get something in return for that, full transparency, but it's all in the aspect of helping you guys start a podcast. Because you know what? Podcasting started with people like us doing this, not these celebrities like Joe Rogan and huge contracts, despite the people who think Adam Carolla invented podcasting. I was listening before he started. I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
I think it was actually started by Abraham Podcaster. 1903.
I believe so.
He would do wax cylinders. I don't know what that means. Anyway. Yes, go do all the things he said. Go. If you have a passion, do it. I always tell people, they're like, oh, I want to do a podcast. I'm like, cool. What's your second episode? You know what I mean? Like, just if you have a passion, you want to talk about things, understand that it's a long form process, right? So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So before we finish off here, Leiann, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Just thanks to our listeners, and we love you.
And that being said, you guys keep enjoying that universe that's just a bit skewered.